Hello everybody, Chris here, and in this video I wanted to show you guys how the Godot tileset tools work, which allow you to take tile sets and make it so that instead of placing each individual tile, you draw with a terrain type, and that terrain type will figure out which tile should go where based on the placement of those tiles and which tiles they are adjacent to. So you can factor in other terrain types, such as here you'd have grass, and adjacent to it you'd have road or some kind of dirt, and you need to figure out which tiles go where. So once you set up the rules using the terrain tools, Godot will be able to automatically figure out what goes where. So let's start this demo by creating a new 2D scene. So the base will just be a root node, and I'm going to rename this to be game level. So let's save that, and then I'm going to Control S to put it somewhere in our project as a saved scene. Let's create a folder for levels. So levels. And I'll save gamelevel.tscn inside of here. So whenever you want to work with tile maps and tile sets, you should add a tilemap 2D node to your game level. So I'm going to click on add a new node, and let's search for tilemap. So let's bring that in, tilemap, create. And if you look over in the inspector, a tilemap takes a tile set. So a tile set, you can create a new one. You can also load or drag in one that's existing in your project. So you don't need to create this for every single level. You could simply save your tile set to your project and then drag and drop it in here for each game level that you want to create. But for right now, let's create a new tile set. So I'll choose new tile set from the drop down. And when we do that, you should see a little grid. I think it defaults to 16 by 16 pixels. Will appear over here on the left. So to edit the tile set, I need to click on tile set in the inspector, and this will give us a couple new pop-ups. So we have the tile set window and the tile map window. So tile map is where you actually draw onto your grid to create your game level in terms of the tiles. And then tile set is where we set things up. So I'm going to jump into the art for the project. I'm using Ninja Adventure, which is available on itch.io for free if you want to use the same graphics. And I'll go into backgrounds, and let's see, tile sets, I believe is what we want. So tile set floor, let's drag this into the tiles tab of tile set. And in Godot 4, they'll give you the option of automatically creating tiles. So because everything here is 16 by 16, it's a good candidate. Should be able to easily figure out the tile, so I'll hit yes. And then you should see all of the tiles be sliced by their 16 by 16 pixel size. So we can start editing these tiles and setting properties for them. So you could go to tilemap and just paint each of these tiles individually, like click on this tile and then place it there. Maybe you want some center tiles, so you could just hold left click and drag and place these around. But you can imagine that this gets really tedious. And figuring out where each of these corner tiles, or the ones that have a little bit of grass on each side, actually go, can be really time consuming. So that's why terrain exists. So you set it up once, and then you should be able to paint with the terrain and get it to look right without having to manually edit it too much. So to set up a terrain, we should go over to the right of the inspector of tilemap, expand tile set, and then we can go to terrain sets. So we want to add a element here, and there's going to be a mode. So by default, the mode is match corners and sides, which gives you 9 positions, including the center, to tell the terrain what type of terrain borders it. So for the center, you would put the main terrain, the terrain of the tile, and then the other 8 directions are what terrain you would see on each side. So match corners and sides is going to work really good for this setup here, where you have this exact layout, and you can define basically each direction well, so that when you actually draw, there'll be a setting for all of these directions. So if I take a look at tilesetter.org, which is one tool for creating tile sets, this is called a Blob tile set, and you see that this needs 47 tiles. So obviously these kind of tile sets are a bit more complicated. Another common set is the Wang tile set over here. They say it's commonly used for top-down artwork, and it only contains 16 tiles. So if you were using a Wang tile set, you probably wouldn't do corners and sides at the same time. That would be too complicated, and you'd be missing certain positional tiles. So whether you do corners and sides depends on basically how complicated you want the tile set to be and how many possibilities you want to account for. So let's actually show how that would look in practice real quick. So let's jump over to tile set, and you want to do paint properties, terrains, and then select the terrain set that you want to draw for. So you can have multiple terrain sets which interact with each other differently if you need to, or you can try to make everything work with one set. But when we select set 0, you'll see that we have no terrain set up yet. So to add terrains, we need to go back over to the inspector, go down to terrain sets and expand terrains and choose add element. So for add element, let's use these tiles over here. They're just a little bit darker color. So let's start with the dirt. So I will call the first terrain dirt. And then let's add an element for another one. And I'll call the second one dark grass. And if we want, we can select a color for this. This is just going to be the color that represents in here. It doesn't change how the tiles actually display in your game at all. So it's just a visual indicator. So we can choose the color selector and do an eyedropper tool, and then just select a green color that kind of matches what we're going to be drawing over there. I don't think I want it to be exactly the same though, because then it will be a little hard to tell what's the actual tile and what's the draw over for the terrain type. So let's shift this something a little bit different. Maybe we'll make it kind of like this darkish green blue, whatever. Okay, now that we have these two terrain types, let's choose terrain and then which one we want to set up first. So I'll do dirt. That's all these center areas. So we just need to define what goes where. So choose dirt. So now we select the tiles that are going to be part of this terrain set. You can just left click hold and draw over all the tiles that match these different terrain types, the dark grass and the dirt. So all of these are probably going to be used. So we'll just add all of these to terrain set 0. So now to actually define the corners and the sides, let's jump into this first tile first. So we can see here that for this tile, which is completely dirt, everything that borders it is also dirt. So you can kind of imagine if we go from this corner, what's up here to the top left? Well, we can see that's dirt right there. So we want to click on the top left corner and define this as dirt, because this corner is supposed to border dirt. So do that for all the directions, and we can see this borders dirt up here. There's dirt to the top right, the bottom middle, bottom left, and left. And also the tile itself is dirt, so we define dirt in the center. So for these everything tiles, you would want all of the directions and the center to be selected. So now we go over here to the right, and we can see that on the far right is grass, in the middle is dirt, and on the left is dirt. So we just draw dirt, dirt. Now to define grass, we go to the selector here and choose dark grass and draw grass on the right 3 tiles. So what this means is that when we're placing a dirt tile and it recognizes that there is dark grass to the right and dirt to the left, the top left, the bottom left, and down and up, that it's going to place this exact tile on your tile map. So you can see, because there's like 9 directions here to account for, that we need more tiles, and that's why you have to have this 47 tile blob for this to work well. So let's go to this one up here. We can see that the main tile here is grass, actually. So let's go up to this one up here. This is supposed to basically form a ring around the edge where the edges are all dark grass, but the center tiles are actually dirt. So we draw grass on the right side and the top side, because there's grass above and grass to the right. But these 4 squares are going to be dirt. So let's change that to dirt and do that. We can keep going around in a ring and just kind of speed this up a little bit. So I'm going to draw dirt over here, down to here, over to here, and up here, and everywhere in the center. So we can see those are all dirt, and these tiles border dark grass. So the border is dark grass, like so. Okay. And now that we have this terrain somewhat defined, we could probably get something to kind of appear on the tile map, which would make some sense. So to draw with the terrain, let's go over to Tilemap and choose terrains from the tabs, and you can choose to draw either dirt or dark grass. So let's do dirt, and I'll just draw some tiles like this and see what we get. We can see that these are dark dirt tiles as opposed to the light dirt we placed over here, but we can just draw over those. And obviously, when we have no dark grass, then everything else is just going to be dark dirt. So let's actually add some grass, and I'll try dragging a ring around this square. Now, we can't actually take dark grass and really get anything to appear yet, because we haven't defined a tile that actually considers the center as dark grass. But we can place it here. We can try to by dragging dark grass terrain around all of these edges, I guess we get a little bit of a weird tile to appear here, but that's not correct. So obviously we need to set up a lot more for this terrain to work properly. So let's go to Tileset, and I'm going to just kind of go through this pretty quick and try to get this correct. But basically the idea is wherever you see dirt, you put dirt. Wherever you see grass, you put grass. So let's do dark grass around that ring here, all the edges. And then the center is dirt. If we go down here, we have dirt on the center. The edges are all grass, like so. We have grass down here. And if we zoom in really far, we can see that this top right corner is also dark grass. So a little bit more obvious over here, we have a dark grass ring. And then the center is dirt. Okay. Now for these, we also have to be a little careful because there are single corners where we have grass, but then like in the middle bottom, in the middle right, we have dirt. So this is dirt, but if we do dark grass, this is actually grass. This is grass. And this left edge is obviously grass. And grass over here. Gotta look for those corners which have the grass. And that's basically the idea. Just make sure that your corners and your sides are defined right based on what kind of terrain they're showing. So we have dark grass here. We have dark grass here. Grass there. Grass there. Okay, and we just keep going with the rest of these tiles here. So grass, 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 and then this is grass, that's grass, 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 grass. Not much to really explain here, just making sure that the terrain is correct here. So be careful with these parts because this square right here doesn't have any grass, but these three do. Okay, so let's add these in. Okay, gotta remove that one. This is grass, that's grass, that's grass. Now, there's a little bit of grass up here, but remember, we're not talking about if there's any grass in the square whatsoever. We're focused on should there be grass to the right. And in this case, no. That should be a dirt square right there. So this is grass. 3 is 3 are grass. That's grass. That's grass. That's grass. And everything else here is dirt. So change to dirt. And let's draw that in. We can kind of see if I selected a different color for dirt, which I guess I'll do now. It would be a little bit easier to see what's what. So if we went with like a bright-ish red, that's a little bit more obvious where we've placed the dirt terrain and where we haven't. So let's make it easier on us. Okay, so this is dirt. That's dirt. I believe this is dirt. Dirt up there. Down there. Da, da, da. Okay, got that section in. And let's add dirt to all these remaining squares. Now, it is also possible to set up a square where you actually define no terrain to one of the sides. But for right now, we're just worried about grass and dirt. So we're not going to set up any directions with no tiles for now. And I guess also worth mentioning, you can also have 3 types of terrain. So you can even have a tile where the rule requirements include terrain 3 different types in 3 different directions. But that would kind of be a bit of a pain to set up, and I don't think we really have that on this particular tile set. But it is something that's possible. Now, over here we also have all dirt tiles. Obviously, we can see that there's like a little bit of decor here. So what you can do for these is place a probability on them so they don't appear too much. So this is the main one where just when you want an obvious repeating pattern, this is usually what you get. But if you want to randomly have these tiles over here show up sometimes, then you can set a probability for them. Because if you define all of the corners and sides and center to be the same as they are here, then both of these tiles are valid and all of them will show up sometimes. So to set up probability, click on the drop down and go to probability. By default, it's 1.0. So we want to give this some kind of percentage much lower than the base tile. So I'll take the probability and set it to 0.03, which means that basically for every 33 of the main tile, we get 1 of these. So when you set the probability, just click on the tile you want to set the probability for, like so. And now these will appear, but far less often than this main dirt tile. And let's see. And this one also is going to factor into that. So currently, these 2 will show up. I think they are the same. But then these will just appear very rarely. And if these are exactly the same, we could just remove one of these tiles from the terrain set, so it only accounts for this one over here. Let's go ahead and do that, actually. So to remove this tile from the terrain set, let's go to the dropdown, terrains, no terrain. Okay, and we want to right click here to remove it from set 0. So everything that's in set 0 has a 0 here, so it's pretty obvious. And that should be roughly what we need to get that to work. So now let's go to Tilemap, and first let's add in some dark grass. So I'll click on dark grass. Let's just left click and draw grass wherever you want there to be grass, kind of around the edges here. And then let's click on dirt and see if we can get some dirt to be set up. So currently it's not working 100%. So let's figure out why. Let's go to tile set. So it could be because I forgot these tiles down here for the center dark grass. Let's paint and try to get those. So terrain, dark grass. These are obviously all dark grass, all the sides and the center. So same for over these. So let's draw in that dark grass terrain. And we probably want to go to probability and set these to a lower value than the center one. So 0.3 for those is good. Let's try drawing again. Dark grass. And okay, now when we start drawing a ring around our area, we get something that makes a lot more sense. So all of these tiles, we would have had to manually select exactly which one we need to pop up there, which would have taken a lot longer than the 5 seconds we just spent on it. So let's use the rectangular select and more grass in here. Note that those random 0.3 probability tiles just pop up occasionally, so we don't necessarily need to define the environment to be super interesting because we already have those random elements. And now to make it a little bit more interesting, let's click on dirt terrain, the pencil tool, and let's draw some dirt through this dark grass. So I'll go down, and you can see as we draw this path, it instantly figures out which tile goes on which side. So this is exactly what we want to see here. Just like a really easy to draw map, and we can just go all the way around, and we don't need to worry about exactly which tile fits where because we already set up the terrain set to match this really nicely. Okay, so that's your situation when you have a nicely defined blob set with all of the 47 tiles with all the possibilities. It makes it really easy to get things to be set up over here. So basically you draw once and everything's going to look correct. But what can you do when you don't have all of the tiles and you don't feel like creating them all yourself? Well, down here we can see that there are these 3 tiles where we have dark grass bordering light grass. And over here we have light grass, which works well with the lighter dirt road color. And then over on the left, we can see that we have all the grass tiles that kind of mirror these dark grass and dark road tiles. And these will work nicely for the light road. But we only have these other 3 tiles for grass bordering dark grass. So if we want to set up some terrain rules where we can have grass transition to dark grass, and we don't have the blob tile set, then probably the best we can get to set up would be to actually create a new terrain set, which is just going to match, I guess in this case, the corners. So let's add an element for terrain sets. And for mode, we're going to change this to match corners. Okay, so this isn't going to be perfect, but we can kind of get close to what we want. So let's do terrains, add element, and we'll do grass. For the color, I'll choose some kind of light grass color. For the next element, we're going to do dark grass. And then I guess that default color can be pretty close. Maybe I'll shift it a little bit more towards green again. All right. So now we want to draw for terrain set 1, where we have these corners. And we're not doing corners and sides because we obviously don't have all the pieces. So let's do terrain set. And we're going to choose from the terrain. So just like before, we want to draw grass and dark grass. But this time, because we're doing corners and not corners and sides, we only have 5 pieces to choose from, which makes it easier to set things up, but we'll be able to have less complicated patterns and designs, which is okay. So here we have grass in the center, obviously. The corners, bottom left would be grass, top left is grass, but over on the right, we have dark grass. So change to dark grass and do dark grass, dark grass. Over here, we have dark grass in the top left, the top right, the bottom right. and the center. And then in this one, dark grass on the bottom left. So then we do grass for the others. So grass there, grass, 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 and then grass in the center. We can come over here and define something similar. So grass, grass, and then grass, 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 grass. Change to dark grass, and we'll do everywhere else basically as dark grass. Now, obviously, these are only like one side for us. So here we can handle where we have dark grass on the right and grass on the left. But what about if we have kind of the same pattern, but it's flipped left to right? Well, then I guess we have that over here on the right. But what about top down and bottom up? So what you can do with tiles where it's going to look the same, but it's just rotated, is you can create alternative tiles. So let's select the tiles we want to create alternative tiles for. So go to select mode, right click on the tile, and then do create alternative tile. So let's do that for each of these 6. So these 3, and then over here we have these 3, create, 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 and they'll pop over here on the right. So we can click on these and adjust them, flip them around, or rotate them. Which if you click on them and you go to rendering is actually called transpose here. Before we do that, let's also take these dark grass tiles and these light grass tiles where they're just all one or the other, and let's add those to our terrain set as well. So let's paint terrains grass. Over here we'll have these 6 or 7 in the set, and just all of those are grass. So just left click, hold, and paint in those corners and center like so. We'll go to probability, and I'll make these 0.3 so they don't show up too often. Because there's 6 of them, we could even make it 0.2 probability. And then left click, and so on and so forth. Let's go over here on the right and do the terrains. The probability is already defined. So terrain set 1, we're going to do dark grass. And let's click over here and add those in. So for over here, if we look at these tiles, we've already defined these on terrain set 0. So if we want to use them without overriding terrain set 0, then we should create alternative tiles here that are going to belong on terrain set 1. At least currently, it seems like each tile can only belong on one terrain set. So let's select these tiles and create alternative tiles, which will put them in the top right. And then for these, we can just go to paint, terrain set 1, dark grass, and we can just add these into terrain set 1. And then this one down here. And if you want, you can set different probabilities because these are different tiles. So let's get the probability to 0.3, 0.03, and I'll click on all the ones that have the extra decals there. Okay, and one more check on terrains. Go to no terrain, and we can see that these belong to 1. These belong to 1, those belong to 1, and everything else is on terrain set 0. So for these alternative tiles, I want to have one copy where we flip H and then one where we do a transpose to account for other possibilities. So let's do the flip H here, and I'll add in another copy of that same alternative tile. So fresh copy here, and then we'll do transpose there. So I just want to do that for each of these. So here we'll flip H. Here we'll create one with transpose. And then here we're going to flip H, and then we'll have one with transpose. Come down here for these ones, flip H, click here, transpose. Okay, and then lastly, the one down here, flip H, and we get one with transpose. We might need one that has a flip and a transpose. We'll just see how this goes. So for right now, let's define how all of these tiles set up. So we need to go back to paint, terrain grass on tile set 1. So the light grass is like this, and here, light grass, light grass, light grass in the center. Okay, like that. And come down here, light grass, where this light grass. Pretty obvious, especially with only 5 directions to go for. So that's light grass, and everything else is dark grass, including right there where I misclicked. So dark grass, dark grass, dark grass. So basically, the idea is we're just trying to account for every possible direction with this match corners setup. So by creating the alternative tiles, we can get those other directions to account for. And I'm not sure, but that should get us pretty close, I hope, to decent looking terrain. So let's go to Tilemap. I'll start with grass. So let's let's draw some grass terrain down here. Now, it's important to note that because these are different terrain sets, they're not going to automatically match each other. So if you want to have dark grass, which actually borders this grass, you're going to need to use terrain set 1. So where we need to account for dirt, we use 0. And when we need to account for the light grass, we use terrain set 1. So terrain set 1, dark grass, and we'll put that over there. And then we get that border on the bottom side. Now, important to note, any tiles that we duplicate over to a different terrain set are technically separate tiles. So even if they have the same graphic, they aren't the same tile. They can have different rules for physics, collisions, and everything else. Okay, let's kind of test this. Let's go around with the pencil tool and draw our tiles here. And we can see it sort of works, but obviously not ideal. So let's go to Tileset, and maybe we do need to create one more here. I'm going to add, and we'll add those in. To be honest, I'm actually not sure if we can make this work 100% with, you know, just these 6 tiles duplicated, but just kind of trying to demonstrate alternative tiles here. So let's go to terrains, and we need to define the terrains. So tileset 1, dark grass. Oh wait, first we need to set these up. So click on them. This is the base tile, so we want to transpose and then flip. Okay, so that gets us on top, right? And if we do flip H, that's not helping. So yeah, we want flip V and transpose, I think. So let's do flip V, transpose, V, transpose. And down here, transpose V, transpose V, transpose V. And so that's how we can get all 4 corners accounted for with just one single tile, basically rotated around and flipped, so that we can account for whether there's grass in the top left, bottom right, or top right, using one base tile. Okay, now let's go to Paint, and let's add in the settings here. So dark grass where it's dark grass, just kind of same thing here. And dark grass in the center, up here at the top, dark grass, and everything else is normal grass. Let's go down, define normal grass, normal grass, normal grass. Let's go to Tilemap. Let's try painting with what we have again. So let's do dark grass and paint over it. And how much is this gonna work? Okay. Then we draw with some normal grass tiles. Okay, so obviously right there is terrain set 0. So the tiles aren't going to work there. So we just need to make sure that we're only matching terrain set 1 down here. And we can kind of draw with this and just see how well we can get it to work. Now let's add in some dark grass in here. So it's sort of working. A lot of the terrain tools are kind of trial and error to get them to work exactly right. But yeah, once again, if you use the blob tile set, it's pretty easy since it's very uniform. Let me check the tile set and see if there is anything else that we can use to account for these different corners and stuff. There does not appear to be. So I think in this case, for it to look right, anytime you switch terrain, it has to be at least 2 or 3 thick. Let me test that. So with these limited amount of tiles, we are going to be a little bit weak on exactly what shapes we can draw and get it to look exactly right. But at least we're closer to what we want, being able to draw between grass and dark grass. It's possible that these would have worked better with matched sides. I'm honestly not really 100% sure there, but hopefully what I did demonstrate in this tutorial is the basic idea, at least, of how things work, how you can set up terrain, how you can draw with the terrain and get tiles to match up with each other much faster. Obviously here I've made some mistakes, but if you get it set up correctly, like up here, then it's just really easy to do stuff like draw a big box. You get the alternative tiles here with the probability, and then you can just go in with dark grass and draw in whatever shape you want, basically, and it is going to give you what you're looking for. So let's get some dirt there. Okay, and down here, dirt as well, and that's looking pretty good. Yep. So we'll draw in dirt here and kind of connect the paths. Sometimes when things change, you might have to go over old tiles a little bit to get them to update properly to what you had before. But for sure, this is definitely leagues quicker than manually placing every single tile. So that's pretty much going to be it for this tutorial, showing you guys the basics of the terrain tools inside of Godot 4, and roughly speaking how you set them up for matching corners and sides for your different terrain types, being able to connect one type of terrain to another and have auto tiling inside of Godot 4. So I've been Chris, thanks for watching to the end, and I will see you guys in my future video content.